So my name is Samantha Davis. I am a personal trainer and business owner out of Zanesville, Ohio. I want to thank you guys for coming today. I would like to share my story of how God caused me to rise and soar into a life of transformation with Him. Isaiah 40:28-31 states, "Have you ever heard? Have you never understood? The Lord is the everlasting God, creator of all the earth. He never grows weak or weary. No one can measure the depths of His understanding. He gives power to the weak and strength to the powerless. Even youths will become weak and tired, and young men will fall in exhaustion. But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint." The last part of this verse in Isaiah 40:31, is something I have worn around my wrist for the past 3 years. It is a gentle reminder of how far God has brought me and the promises that He still has in the future. It is my hope and prayer that my story will give you the strength to turn to God and trust Him in times of opposition and pain. Everyone faces challenges that test their faith, but God is on the other side, waiting for us to take His hand and welcome Him with open arms. Isaiah 40:28-31 encourages us to listen to what God has to say. He is our Creator, our Redeemer, our Provider, our Healer, our friend, our hope, our Savior, and our victory. He is strong and powerful enough to help us overcome any dart that the enemy fires our way. He causes us to rise above every obstacle that stands against us. But we are called to first trust in His timing and patiently wait for His day of redemption and salvation. We cannot do life in our own strength, but through perseverance and faith, we can do anything with God. We must rely on Him to heal our sicknesses, to restore our broken hearts, to ignite our dreams, strengthen us when we are weak, and empower us to overcome every obstacle and soar into victory. So what does it mean, you might ask, to soar? We first then have to ask, what does it mean to be an eagle? Today I would like to challenge you to think about how you can become an eagle in the storms of life. An eagle is the owner of the skies. He's the largest bird that is able to take flight. The spiritual quest of an eagle helps you to discover your own personal power and a route to your destiny. Oftentimes, the one God helps you choose. He flies fast and furious, gliding and drifting on the heat pockets and the air streams of high in the sky. He teaches us to conserve those energies, to use them for the greater good, and to use them wisely. In order for the eagle to achieve maximum results, he must be swift and focused. We need to learn from the eagle when to coast and when to accelerate. In other words, we need balance in our life. The eagle is master of timing and accuracy. His strong talons give him the ability to grab whatever he needs when he needs it. The spirit of an eagle takes us on a journey of flight, which opens us to new vistas of perception and new dimensions of awareness that call us to look at things with new eyes. An eagle's eyes are much like God's eyes. They represent God's perspective of our situation and in life. God is our guide and removes our wings and prepares us for the journey ahead, much like an eagle who sheds his wings in preparation for the direction in the future that he's being called to. God gives us justice and redemption when trials and tragedies come, and He reveals truth of His love and compassion in our pain. Just like an eagle who scoops up his children and carries them, He protects them when they feel weak and weary. God does the same for us. In 2016, I made a decision that would ultimately change my life forever. I chose to become a bodybuilder. I was determined to be the best competitor that I could be. I I knew it would not be easy, mentally, emotionally, and physically, but I was up for the challenge. I justified it as an outlet to recover from addiction and provide structure to my life. I had been an alcoholic for almost all of my 20s, so I needed something healthier to latch onto than a liquor bottle. When I committed to my first competition, I did not look back. I was driven to be better than the person I saw in the mirror. I hated who I was, for many reasons, but the one reason that sticks out the most was that I never felt good enough. Years of abuse, abandonment, and rejection had led me down a very destructive path which caused me to be ashamed of who I was. I used bodybuilding to cover up the pain of my childhood and to prove to myself and everyone else that I could do anything I set my mind to. After competing in 3 competitions, I took first place in 2 out of the 3 shows. I was proving to be unstoppable, and it was only the beginning of my career. I was told by other competitors and coaches that I had a great chance of winning my pro card if I took my skills to the national stage. This would take extra time and effort on my part, yes, but I was excited to finally feel proud of myself. I felt accomplished. I received all kinds of accolades for my performances and was even told I would look like one of the most beautiful competitors in the world. I promised myself I would do anything it took to win, to make money, feel stronger, tone my body, and travel all over the world. I was on a mission to be anyone and anything but who God made me to be. And bodybuilding would surely give that to me. The fall of 2017 is when everything fell apart in my life. I was one of 20 female athletes chosen by 2 professional coaches out of Australia who picked us out of a group of 300 women to compete on an international stage in Mexico. This is a dream come true for any competitor, to say the least. To pass up this opportunity would have been crazy. Because of my physique and how well I performed and posed, on stage, my coaches assured me that I would win and go on to be extremely successful in the sport. This was enough to secure my spot on the team. For 7 months, I trained with them over Skype, trusting that they had my best interests at heart. When I met them during show week, I was stunned to find out that they were not who they seemed to be. They were everything opposite of what I saw and heard in my meetings with them. You know the saying, we should never meet our heroes. Well, this was an unfortunate reality that almost cost me my life. After being persuaded to lose over 15 pounds in 1 week and offered drugs to enhance my physique, I began to question their credibility. However, instead of going with my gut and doing what I knew was right, I made the choice to oblige. Long story short, I lost the weight. I took the pills that were given to me. I was questioned by some of my teammates. Why? Why are you doing this to yourself? They desperately wanted to see and help me see the light of what was true, not the lie that was being conceived in my head. Fact was, I did not have any weight to lose, and I knew that sticking to steroids or any other supplement would be detrimental to my body. I sacrificed my life by selling my soul to the sport. It's a moment that I will never forget, the decision to follow advice of people instead of God, the decision to risk my life for strangers who did not care about my health, the decision to relentlessly pursue and chase a dream that took precedence over my relationship with Christ. As we all know, selfishness and greed do not come without a cost, and it was the gravity of my decision that would eventually cost me everything that I loved. I came home from Mexico with a bacterial infection that left me with diarrhea for over 9 months. I also sustained an injury to my neck and left shoulder that 2 years later would alter the direction of my life forever. These are the very catalysts that led me onto one of the deepest, darkest depressions I would ever endure. One of extreme pain, anxiety, worry, and fear. But they were also the very reason I found God. If we do not honor the Sabbath, as Ruth Barton states, the Sabbath will eventually find us. And that is exactly what happened to me. I didn't rest, I pushed my body 7 days a week. But God calls us to rest, and that I did not. He rested on the 7th day, and who am I to be any different than Him? I I pushed my body so much that it finally had enough, and it broke. Competing in Mexico was the straw that broke the camel's back. I came home 89 pounds, left with a torn labrum and bicep tendon, 2 brain aneurysms, metabolic disorder, Hashimoto's disease, and cervicogenic dizziness that left me chained as a prisoner in my own body. Not to mention the impact that it had on my emotional, mental, and spiritual health. Brokenness exists all over the world, whether we cause it or not. We all struggle with pain of some kind, and it is hard to understand why God would allow such pain to exist. Let's admit it. It's hard to understand and trust in something or someone we cannot see. We ask things like, where is he when we need him the most? Is he even listening? Does he really understand what I'm going through? How long must I wait before I hear from him or he answers my prayers? And if he really cared, why doesn't he respond to what I need? If I could numb the pain with someone or something else, why wouldn't I? I will never be more than what I am today, so why should I try any harder? These are the prevailing and disturbing questions that challenge us in this world. People tell us that God does not always come to us in an audible voice to answer the questions of why and how come. Why did I have to lose my loved one to cancer? How is this happening to me? Why do I continue to be in pain when I'm following your word? Why did COVID-19 take so many lives? Why do people hate and discriminate? How do I overcome this depression? How do I recover from losing my job and income because of the economy? And how do I battle this addiction? It is much easier to turn to the world and to ourselves for solutions to our pain. We idolize and worship authority, ourselves, social media. But who is God in this world? People tell us that if God loved us, he would have not allowed this pain to happen. And maybe he would have saved my best friend from cancer. We blame God for COVID-19 sickness and disease. We would rather hate one another than appreciate and respect our differences. Instead of turning to God as our source, we use others and ourselves or things to define our self-worth. But God asks us to turn to him. My story and the challenge that we face in this world today correlate to the events and tragedies that occur in the first part of Isaiah. Before we get to chapter 40, Israel has been destroyed. Trouble is realized when the prophet Isaiah comes to warn his people what will happen if they continue to lead their own selfish lives. You see, the Judean people have been offering burnt sacrifices to false gods. They have fallen short to immoral and idolatrous behaviors. People have now lost their faith, hope, and trust in God. Nations are falling apart. They have become slaves to their masters. Towns are burned, and everything is destroyed. But when we get to verse 28 in chapter 40, God gives us grace and mercy. He announces grace and mercy to the people of Judah. He offers them a way out of their pain. Once they realize the gravity of their sins and turn to him for guidance and wisdom, he fulfills his promise of restoration, peace, and victory. He causes them to triumph. He shows them and his people that they will rise and become a nation of strength, hope, and faith. God promises them double for everything that they have lost and shows them a way towards salvation. God not only redeems them, but gives them more than they could ever dream, because Judah is now turned into Jerusalem, which becomes God's kingdom. God transforms Jerusalem into the most powerful nation in the north and proves to the world that God is forever faithful to his word. Through this victory, God shows the people that they can trust him, and he understands them, and he is a God of compassion and forgiveness and will always be there to give them strength and power to overcome the enemy. For a period of 3 years, I lost many things I loved and cared about. My job as a personal trainer, my health, my clients, my spirit, my passion for exercise and fitness. I even lost some very important people in my life. That is how long it took to recover from the mess that I myself created. I'm blessed to say now I am completely restored and living a life that is full of more blessings than I could ever imagine. I thank God every day that His grace and mercy are what saved me from the grips of death. He cured me of diarrhea, healed my neck and shoulder through Christian doctors, regulated my thyroid, and dissolved both aneurysms in my brain. As of August 31st, 2020, I was cleared to run for the very first time in 11 months. Before this time, I could not walk a straight line without being dizzy. A neurologist said that I would never run again, but science never outweighs the power of God. Because just a couple weeks ago, I ran sprints with my clients for the first time in almost a year. To say I'm blessed is an understatement. I'm proud to say I'm 4 years sober. To heal me in this way, God must have seen something in me I could not see in myself. He had a greater plan and purpose for my life, like He did with the people of Judah, and that's what He does for you. In my reckless pursuit to live a life that would never give me what I truly needed, God was there to pick up the pieces and give me acceptance, approval, and love, which I've been searching and striving for my whole life. We have all done this at some point or another. We fight and fight for the affection, approval, and love that only God Himself can give. And in the end, if we don't turn to Him for these things, it can be the very thing that costs us our souls. God asks us to come to Him, not others. But even when we give up on Him, when we turn away, He never gives up on us. He's always there to welcome us back home. He is a gracious and loving Father who wants nothing but the best for us. There is no amount of pain or sickness that God could not heal. But we must genuinely believe and trust in His faithfulness. The world will try to tell us otherwise, but we must open our eyes and ears to the one who illuminates all truth, and that is God. While the world dangles temptation in our face, God showers us with salvation. He gave me my life back, and He can do the same for you, no matter what you are going through. Because of our decision to trust Him, He shows us the undeniable and unconditional love that no human can ever give. Our failures and setbacks do not measure up to the victory that God has in store for us. He is not only compassionate and kind, but He understands our pain. Isaiah verse 28 states that no one can measure the depths of His understanding. He can relate to our pain because it's a sacrifice on the cross. He Himself experienced how evil and how unjust this world really is. He Himself, much like David, defeated the giant in front of Him, and we are called to be mighty warriors of God. He gave us the same resurrection power that caused Him to rise from the grave. He calls us to also rise from addiction, anxiety, depression, fear, sickness, even death. He gives power to the weak and strength to the powerless. As it says in verse 29, God never grows weak or weary. No matter what you are facing, God has enough strength to carry you and help you soar through your pain. So how do we become an eagle? If you look at the sheet that I gave you, that I passed out in the beginning, next to the eagle there's an acronym that runs down the side. For eagle, for the first letter E, God ensures that He will never leave us, that He always takes care of us, just like an eagle ensures safety and protection for its young. A, God awakens us to our minds and hearts and souls. He awakens us to the plan for our lives that He has, and His truth guides us into a life that is more than we could ever ask. Just like an eagle has clear perspective on life because of how high he can soar, God gives the same to us. G, God gives. God gives us strength. And He gives us everything that we need to endure when we are going through pain. He gives us resources that we need to keep going, just like an eagle gives resources to its children. E, God elevates. He also empowers us to live in victory and reach our full potential. It causes us to soar over every obstacle in life, just as an eagle elevates higher and higher to achieve maximum results. My challenge to you is to become an eagle. And how do we do this when the storms of life seem to be taking us deeper and deeper into a place that we thought we would never be? We must take His hand and trust Him, and that He will walk you through whatever situation you are facing right now. If it is addiction, know that God says you are free, and that He understands, just as it says in verse 28. He understands temptation just like He understood life. I would probably want to go into the life of bodybuilding. God understands loss of a loved one because He too has lost his life. If it is disease or sickness, believe that He will cause you to walk and not faint, as it says in verse 31. If it is an injury that you are sustaining, He promises to cause you to fly and soar on eagle's wings. Isaiah 40:28-31 emphasizes the point that God is just, He is loving, and He is merciful. We as humans tend to rely on our own strength to get us through life, but if we trust God, He will provide us the ability and strength to not only get through obstacles we face, but even soar above them. God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. For it is then that the wind of God will lift us up on eagle's wings and carry us through the stresses and struggles of life. Things may not always happen in our timing, but God's timing is always perfect. So let us not grow weary or faint. Instead, trust in Him, and He will always provide everything that you need. We all face tragedy in life, but it is how we overcome that defines who we are. It is important to understand that God wants to bring us compassion and comfort in our pain. But we must first give our hearts to Him and release any control we might have over our lives. He promises to strengthen and empower us to soar on wings like eagles, so that no fiery dart of the enemy can reach us. When we trust God to bring us to the other side, He never fails to restore our brokenness, ignite our dreams, strengthen our faith, and empower us to walk in victory. When we trust God to help us overcome the challenges and obstacles of life, through His strength, perseverance, and timing, much like an eagle, He promises redemption and awards us the grace and power to soar. God asks us to believe in Him. We must come to understand and trust that God is always present, and He takes care of our needs. Even in the worst of times, no matter what kind of trouble we face, God is always there to comfort us during our pain. God shows us that we are not alone, and He forgives us every time we trail off His path. He reminds us that He is always full of second chances, and that His love is unconditional. His strength prevails in our weakness, and we can lean on Him for the power to overcome any obstacle that stands in our way. Like an eagle, God never grows tired, weak, or weary. He gives us the ability to stand strong during the fight of cancer, to trust in His promise that our finances are taken care of, and empowers us to overcome oppression, addiction, and fear. When we go to Him with our sincere hearts, He gives us more than we could ever think, ask, or imagine. He grants us favor during the storms of life so that we can see His faithfulness. God restores our faith, ignites our dreams, walks hand in hand with us when we feel like we can't take another step, and He equips us for victory. God's message to us in Isaiah 40:28-31 is that He will never leave or forsake us, even when we turn away. He is compassionate and He understands. Even when we doubt His goodness, He is always there to encourage us and lift us out of despair. He promises that we will run and not grow weary, not stumble or fall. He always causes us to triumph and soar to new levels of abundance and favor.